Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of CineMasochism, where my co-host Sean Wasterkrug and I talk about shitty films because if they can't be entertaining to watch, maybe they'll be entertaining to talk about. I guess I don't know.
Sometimes we need to vent,
Yeah,
and vent by watching shit.
this is therapy for us.
Yes.
Although we purposely put ourselves through it, but it is what it is. It's fun. We like to make fun of things. We're assholes. What do you expect? So yeah, as I said, my name is Brian Michaels. This is my co-host Sean Wasterkrug. Sean, what did you know about today's movie before going into it?
All I knew about this film, aka Yoga Hosers, was that it was a movie that Kevin Smith made for his daughter, and that it was really, really bad. To the point where I never even tried attempting to watch it because I heard that it had connections to another film that we talked about on the Weekend Crusaders. That was a sneaker film, which was Tusk, which I had not watched until we watched it for the show, and that was equally fucking awful. So when I heard movie for his daughter, which I have nothing against Harley Quinn Smith, but she's not a good actress, and I heard connections to Tusk, I have no fucking reasons to watch this film except for a show like CineMasochism. So that's what I knew going into this movie.
Yeah, so Yoga Hosers was a film that before Tusk even got released, Kevin Smith said that he was going to make this spin-off film starring the characters that his daughter and Harley Quinn Smith and Lily Rose Depp played in Tusk, which is just basically a couple of clerks at this Canadian convenience store, A to Z. He says he's making a movie, he's going to follow them, and it's going to come out. And apparently now it's his True North trilogy. Which the third one is supposed to be called Moose Jaws, which has been threatening for years to make. Apparently now it's finally going to get made. It's basically described as Jaws, but with a moose instead of a shark. So there's my tie-in for this weekend to Cocaine Bear. Is this trilogy is a creature on the loose? I don't know.
And that's the part that worries me, is that Kevin Smith's not saying I really, really want to make this film. Is I've been threatening.
Yeah, he used the term, I was threatening to make this movie. Now, he's always been self-deprecating. But the problem is, having seen these first two movies, I don't know if I want to watch this third one.
I think
the first one, Tusk, obviously turned out to suck.
Didn't they say that he was only allowed to make Moose Jaws if Clerks 3 made so much money? Like a certain amount of money.
They said that he'll only do that. I think it was just after the money that both Reboot and Clerks 3 most recently have made so much money on video with DVDs or Blu-rays or digital purchases, things like that Lionsgate is like, yeah, sure.
And I think they said too is like, if you can make this movie for under
$3 million or something like that, $5 million,
yeah, then you can do it. He's like, I can totally do that.
Yeah, it's Kevin Smith, he can do that. So, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. This movie. This is the first spin-off, Yoga Hosers. Yoga Hosers was released in very limited on September 2nd, 2016, really got its release on November 22nd of 2016, where it basically hit streaming, because this is in that phase where Kevin Smith started doing his thing where he would like just release it super limited, or he'd go to do like the road show thing where he'd play it, where at the same time he did his Q&A tours that he would do.
Can we pause real quick and talk about that shit? Because this is just fucking stupid. Because I think I get why Lionsgate's doing this, because they feel like if they wide release it, then they got to put a ton of money into advertisements and a ton of money into getting the theaters and all this kind of stuff for however long they want to have it in theaters. But by doing this, like, oh, it's only going to be in theaters for 2 days or something like that, I'm sorry. This time, at least with Clerks 3. I can't say much for Reboots, and I definitely can't say anything for Yoga Hosers. But for Clerks 3, you could have made a good chunk of money just keeping it in theaters, because it's Clerks. People love Clerks. I personally love Clerks 2 more than Clerks 1. And even though we both did not like Clerks 3, having this just be like, you only have 2 days to see it, and in the post-COVID era, you're shooting yourself in the fucking foot. Because A, you're trying to get a whole bunch of people to cram into a theater within 2 days, which people don't want to do that anymore. They want to see it sparingly. And then by doing this, you're not going to make the money you think you're going to make until the digital stuff starts.
Well, Kevin Smith went on this thing. Basically, the first time he turned away, he said he was done with his View Askew thing. I think he just hated studio politics and interference and things like this. And so I remember like when he did Red State, I think it was, he had this big production at Sundance where he's like, there was going to be this auction for who would which studio would get the rights to distribute his film, and he made this big production of it, and then he basically paid himself $1. So I'm going to distribute it myself. I don't know what show, which basically just pissed off everybody who'd gone through all the hoops and stuff to be there and try and do this thing. And ever since then, he's done this thing where it's like, I think he just wants to make films. He knows that his films make most of their money on home video, on digital downloads. These are cult films that people get and they watch at home and they grow their followings online or on, at home. His movies have never been giant blockbusters. His biggest grossing film was Cop Out, and that's possibly his worst film outside of this one. So he just does his thing, and I think that he knows that, but it's like these Fandango events, Fathom events. They offer to do this thing. Well, hey, we can put it in theaters nationwide, but they don't do like full releases. They just do like, hey, we can do this special event. You can have it a couple nights. Now, granted, with both Reboot and with Clerks, they ended up extending those to have them in theaters for a full week or two. But even then, it was a very limited number of theaters. Like, they didn't play anywhere near you. Is that correct?
No, I got it for 2 days.
Oh, you did get it for 2 days.
I got it for 2 days, and I barely got to see it. It was one of those things where, because I had to work both those days, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to fucking see Clerks 3. And then I remember, I think it's like, I got off at like 7:30, and the movie started at 7. And I was like, I'm not going to come into it 30 minutes late. Mm-hmm. That's stupid. But then I remembered, oh, wait, my theater likes to spend 30 minutes after trailers time doing commercials and trailers and shit. So I might actually show up right when the movie started. And sure enough, I think I got in there and the movie had been on for 2-3 minutes because I think, don't they open it up with a hockey game in Clerks 3?
I think so. I honestly
don't they play hockey on the roof at the start of Clerks 3?
I think so. Because
I missed that. I missed it. So when I got in there, they were basically back in the store, kind of thing.
So he's been doing this weird release thing, which I, like you said, it could make some money, even if it's not going to make blockbuster money. His movies can make some money if they give them regular release, but he doesn't want to do that. Whatever. The only good news is that they then go to digital and DVD and stuff like weeks after it comes out in this little mini theater release, so you can actually see it pretty fast. But this is one of those. So there's technically like a $36,000 box office reporting, but that's all international because the domestic numbers from those showings didn't get shown. But bottom line is it made no money in theatrical. On Letterboxd, this has a 1.8 out of 5 average rating. IMDb gives it 4.2 out of 10. Rotten Tomato, 24% critic, 34% audience. Yeah, so that's that. So okay, let's get something out of the way first. The movie, the title Yoga Hosers, I don't understand because even over the closing credits, you hear like a little snippet where they're from his Smodcast, where the ideas for Tusk and this came from, where they're making fun of like some yoga guy who got arrested by police, and they just imagined him saying, "Oh, you yoga hoser," and yoga hoser has nothing to do with anything in this movie. I mean, these two girls happen to take some yoga classes, but I don't know how this becomes the title of our movie.
See, here's me being dumb because Canada, which we're definitely going to talk about the Canada part of this.
Yeah.
But I thought yoga hosers was some way connected to like, because the pictures of them look like with their whole hockey sticks, it looks like. And I thought hosers was maybe another term for hockey in Canada for some reason. I went into this with like blue. So I was like, oh, they're female hockey players who work at a convenience store. No, that's not it at all. Because I know that there's at least a few times where a hockey stick is used in this film.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where it's like, and like even right before we started this movie, Brian's like, do you know anything about this? I go, no. I go, but I have a feeling it's either going to be a lot like Clerks or it's some kind of horror movie. I go, I don't know which one it is, but it ended up being kind of correct on both counts. But that's what I thought when they were saying hosers. I thought it was just like another term.
I think hosers just means like a loser, like even in Strange Brew, it made it famous, like take off hoser, things like that. Which actually one of the girls' last name in this movie is Colleen. Her name is Colleen McKenzie, named after the McKenzie brothers from Strange Brew and from Great White North. So that's the hosers part. The yoga part, like I said, I think it just came from this offhand comment about some other dude in some article they read, and all of a sudden it became the title of this movie. And it's not a defining characteristic. They aren't like yoga is like their thing. Now there are times like in their fights where they suddenly decide, let's fight him using yoga, and they do like warrior pose 1, warrior pose 2, and then they just go and kick ass. Like yoga has nothing to do with anything in this movie. I don't understand why it's the title of the movie.
It's a common thread throughout the film because that's their like safe space is doing yoga with, and we're not going to say who the master is yet until we get to that point. And then of course they try to do yoga in school, but then they pull off the clueless thing where it's like, oh, my doctor,
my yoga instructor doesn't want me to do anything which derail my training, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, they have at least like 3 to 4 scenes of them doing yoga, and it honestly is them doing yoga that actually made them fight to begin with, kind of thing. So I get that aspect of it, but it's the hoser part that I couldn't grab my head around. But like I said, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're definitely going to touch on a lot of these things because there's plenty of things to talk about. And then also something new at the end of this episode. I'm gonna help me remind myself to remember. Brian did this thing, and we're gonna try to make this a normal thing if Brian can remember it. Is that at one point in this movie, Brian took a screenshot of both me and him's reaction as we were watching this film. Oh yeah, well, not gonna do it right now.
Oh,
not gonna do it right now. No, it's near. I want to do it at the end. But it's gonna go right here in the middle. But he said this to me about halfway through the film. He goes, "Our reactions to this film," and I laughed. I was like, "This has got to be a new weekly thing." Like, so as long as Brian remembers to do it, that is gonna be something new of the. What is the best assumption of our opinions of this film? And it's going to be a picture of us watching that movie. So that's just a little tease for later.
Spoiler alert, it's not us going, yay.
Unless we completely forget it at the end, then I'll drop it right now. But yeah, so this was definitely, and Brian had seen this film already. So once again,
I had seen this film one time, like when it first dropped, because I'm like, it's Kevin Smith. I enjoy Kevin Smith's films. Even when he got out of the View Askew universe and started doing like Red State and things like that, most of them were enjoyable on some level. Tusk had a lot of ridiculous, stupid stuff to it, but there was some good things about it. It was still.
I disagree. I don't think there's anything good about Tusk. I think Tusk is a shit ass film.
Oh, for the vast majority of it, yes.
The best way that.
But this looked like more of a straight comedy, so I'm like, he's back to his roots, maybe.
Well, the best way that Brian described this movie to me, and this was like right when he was about ready to hit play, was that you said this felt like Kevin Smith was asking every favor he could and forcing everyone he could into this movie because it's his daughter's film.
Yeah, he basically wanted to make this vanity project for him and his daughter, and his daughter, who apparently one of her best friends in real life is Lily Rose Depp because they went to the same school in Hollywood or wherever. So they wanted to like let them be in a movie and apparently let them play music too, because they play a full song at the beginning.
Well, basically, you're trying to go full on like Josie and the Pussycats.
Yeah, there's a full song in the middle they sing for no reason, and they're not even very good. I mean,
there are at least 3 parts that I can think, because the movie's an hour and 26 minutes, and there's at least 3 points in this film that they sing full on songs.
A full song,
technically 4 because the end credits is 2 songs.
Yeah.
So the movie starts with them singing this really, really bad rap. And then about maybe 20 minutes in, they sing a full-on song in the bedroom. And we're like, are they actually singing the whole damn song? Yeah, they're singing the whole damn song. And then they don't do it again till the end. But to the end, they basically sing "Oh Canada." And then a version of "Oh Canada" after that. It's like, they're not horrible, but they're not good.
Yeah, not good enough but basically he wanted to let them make this movie and let them sing in this movie. It feels like he called in favors from like all his friends and people he had worked with, along with Johnny Depp, and he brought in his family because Lily's mother, who Johnny Depp is divorced from, but she still was in the movie. Johnny Depp's son is in a bit part in a cameo, like you don't even know who he is. But there's all these people, the entire cast essentially of Tusk is in this movie, but in different roles, of course, because they can't play the people
yet it is in the same world as Tusk, which that shit drives me insane. Because
if you're going to be like Monty Python, or you're going to be like Kids in the Hall, things like this, where people are known for playing multiple roles within the same movie, even much less the same world, that's fine. But this isn't that. This is a different movie and just the same person.
Tusk is brought up at least 4 times in this movie, and Johnny Depp is literally playing the same character that he played in Tusk. But yet there are 3 other people that were in Tusk that are in this movie that are playing separate roles.
Yeah,
and that shit drives me insane. I hate when movies do that, and it's you can say, "Oh, Sean, just let it go." No, it's not just a pet peeve. That's just stupid, and I hate that because it's movie continuity. And yes, you can say, "Oh, it's a Kevin Smith movie," but no, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt to not do this. And then he's already said in Moose Jaws that the same people are going to be playing different characters in Moose Jaws,
except the Colleens. The Colleens are supposedly going to return,
and Johnny Depp.
Yeah, as a guy.
We're going to play the same characters. The other characters that are different in this movie that were different in Tusk are going to play like the Brody and all that shit in this Moose Jaws movie that who knows will ever see the light of day. But yeah, the movie starts out with them doing like a singing / rap, and honestly, the best part of this is realizing who their drummer was, Ichabod, played by Adam Brody.
Adam Brody, who's like this 35-year-old drummer for these 15-year-old girls, and their band is called Glamthrax.
Yes.
They're doing this in the back room of the convenience store where they work, which apparently their father owns, and one of their fathers owns, and is it stepmom, or are they just boyfriend girlfriend? I don't know.
I think they're boyfriend girlfriend. I don't think they're.
But she's like one of the managers of the place too. It's A to Z, EH of course because it's Canada. A to Z. Trust me, the Canadian things will go.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
It's constant.
It's Depp's Colleen. It's Lily Rose Depp's Colleen, whose father, played by Tony Hale, who owns the store, and then
Natasha Lyonne.
Yeah, Natasha Lyonne plays Tabitha, who is the manager who's stooping her father to basically run the store with him, kind of thing. And then Colleen, Harley Quinn, we're gonna have to find a different way to differentiate them. She's the best friend, who's also Colleen. So it's Colleen and Colleen, which is so like, and they're basically playing this like a Josie and the Pussycats meets Clueless meets Romeo and Michelle. Like you ball those up into like three into one big thing. That's basically what these characters are portraying.
But take out any actual humor.
Yes, and honestly,
and add in a whole bunch of over-the-top Canadian accents.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like once they stop playing their music and they have to go out and actually work, the Canadian accent is so obnoxiously overdone to the point that it's borderline like nails on a chalkboard. You can talk Canadian and say a boot and do all that stuff and just say it naturally, but no, they had to emphasize a boot, a boot, hoser, hey, a boot this. I'm sorry about that. It's like, no, just say it. I'm sorry about that. You say it naturally like that and just have it be fine and it will feel full. But no, every Canadian accent of a word that is not said the American way, they have to like either raise the volume up or emphasize it with like a fucking nail into a fucking coffin. And it's like, oh my God, is this needed? No, it's not needed. It's like you could have had this movie be like, just below the Canadian border, just had them speak American. But no, you had to add this Canadian.
Then it's basically Fargo.
That's fine. They can go the same thing, don't you know? Every 5 seconds. They don't have to go, oh, boot, and sorry about that, and oh, man, next. It's like, shut the fuck up. Yeah.
So they come back out of the back room. They decide they reopen the store. Everybody comes in. They say sorry about that like 20 times. Yeah. And then we meet a couple of guys. I didn't know who they were when I saw this movie. One of them is
Brian still didn't know the one guy, which I knew as
he's
Tyler
from Teen Wolf. His name is it Skylar something?
No, his name's Tyler Posey. That's the actor's name, but he plays Scott McCall in Teen Wolf, which I was like, Teen Wolf, because the movie just came out.
Yeah, the other one is Academy Award nominee, maybe
potential winner.
Austin Butler. Yeah. Who I did not realize was in this movie because I haven't watched this movie since he broke out. Because actually I told Sean, looking back at his early career, he did a lot of shit movies. It was kind of like they did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Elvis.
He's a Disney kid.
Yeah, he did like Aliens in the Attic. He did Sharpay's Great Adventure, and then he did like this. And it's like I'm just like, he was really doing that Canadian accent, but beyond that, he was fine. He's fine.
He was like, "Oh, Colleen, it's nice to see you. It's a great day. I will boot that."
His lips pierced weird because he was trying to talk funny like that.
Talking like this the whole time, And it's like, oh my God, Austin Butler is doing such a piss poor job. And here's Tyler Posey. He's just being Tyler Posey. He ain't doing anything different. He just plays that. Then you got him. It's almost like he's trying to. Austin Butler's trying to do almost like a like a play, like like talking like, yeah, it's about that, yeah, it totally is. Colleen, we got a party, It's like, oh my god, Austin Butler is so bad in this movie.
Yeah. So Harley, I'm just gonna, unless I'm talking about the Colleens together, I'm gonna call
we'll
them
say Carly and Depp.
Harley and Lily for me. Yeah. So Harley apparently really has a crush on this dude.
Yeah.
And they basically get invited to this senior party that they're gonna get to go to because the other guys are seniors, and so they were looking
and
forward
they're
to
sophomores.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of the scene is they basically get invited to this party. Then they leave. Then we see our first attack.
No, you're forgetting the one thing that we immediately got annoyed with. Every time a character debuted on camera,
I was gonna get that later, but yeah, we do it now.
Insta something.
Insta
where I had
cam.
to stop the movie, have their profile, and then their little side thing. So the movie would just keep stopping itself and doing this, and just.
I've seen it done well. They did it in like Suicide Squad, and it wasn't too annoying. They did it in Can't Hardly Wait. They did like the yearbook thing, and it was fine. But this one, I think, just because they did it for literally every single new character.
Well, that and it had a tune like every time they did it. It's like, oh my God.
And it wasn't even up there long enough for you to read everything that they tried to put. I'm sure they tried to insert little jokes in there, but you can't. But it got really obnoxious because it just happened so often, especially in the first half of the movie, but then throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
So they're doing that. We then see our first little tease. There's like a bum in an alley who gets attacked by something. We can't quite see what it is. We just see the top of like a sharp helmet. And this basically something crawls up this guy's ass and kills him.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the.
And I immediately went to Brian and go, Brian, this better not be a penis. And he's like, no, it's not. But
I'm like, oh, it's not.
It's not. But honestly,
it's not
it
much
probably would have been better if it was a penis.
We then go to see Lily is talking to her mom, who is working at movies still.
No, not Lily. Harley. It was Harley. It was Harley.
Well, no, because it's Jennifer Schwab. She was not Harley's mom.
Yeah, she was. Harley's mom is her real mom in the movie.
I thought
Lily is Tony Hill's daughter with Natasha Lyonne. Harley is her actual mom, and it's not movies. It's actually not
movies. It would kind of had the same color scheme and stuff, but
it wasn't movies.
Yeah, but she's working at this place, and she goes to see her mom and talks about the senior party she wants to go to, and then there's this whole conversation about period blood that goes on for way too long that we need to talk about.
Because they were faking. She was like, "Hey, you know what's going to happen at this party? They're going to try to have sex with you." They go, "No, they're not. We're totally going to be okay. But besides, we had our periods this week." And they're like, "No, because we're all on the same menstrual cycle."
It's like, I know you don't, because you're tied with me.
And the whole gag is that this guy's literally trying to eat. He's got like a big French fry with a bunch of ketchup on it. He can't eat because he's looking at it thinking.
They keep talking about periods.
Yeah, it's a cheap joke.
Yeah. And then we go to our first yoga session with the yogi played by Justin Long,
who is Tusk,
is not a walrus anymore apparently.
Yeah.
And Justin Long is an actor who I really like in a lot of stuff, all the way back to Ed, and of course Galaxy Quest and Accepted, and plenty of other things since then. But there are other roles like this one. It seems to me whenever he pops up in a Kevin Smith movie, usually, where Kevin Smith just like lets him improv, and I really wish he wouldn't, because A, it's not very funny, and B, it goes on forever.
See, I'm on the opposite side of it. I actually love Justin Long and Kevin Smith movies, except for Tusk. Because my problem with Justin Long lately, and you can chalk this up to Tusk as well, and Jeepers Creepers and Barbarian that came out last year, is for some reason, because he's such just like lovable, like funny, dorky guy, that they constantly keep putting him in situations where he has to be this epic asshole, like douchebag kind of character. And I hate these performances of him. But when he's these kind of characters where he's, oh God, I can't remember what the gay porno guy is from Zack and Miri.
Brandon St. Randy.
Is it Brandon St. Randy?
Randy, yeah.
I love that. And see, Brian doesn't like that.
That was okay, except he was doing a stupid voice. And then he shows up in Clerks 3 doing a stupid voice. And it's like, why does he always have to put on a stupid voice?
But with Brandon St. Randy, it worked for me. And even in this, it worked for like the first time. The first scene, I was like, okay, he's putting on a front. But honestly, I actually enjoyed him. He's probably one of the few things I actually enjoyed in this movie, if there's things to enjoy. But yeah, I like when Justin Long can actually do comedy, and he's not trying to play this like sleazy asshole character, because I still see him as the guy from Galaxy Quest and Dodgeball and all this stuff. He's just a lovable, funny guy. And
I think what he does to do Barbarian and things like that, he wants to like try and not get stuck in that stereotype. So he tries to do this stuff, but instead of just not being a doofus, he overcompensates and says, well, I guess I should be a complete asshole then.
Yeah, and I hate those roles for him, because they're just not, they don't give him range. It just make me go, oh, Justin Long's kind of an asshole. I mean, the performances, not the person. I have no idea if Justin Long's really an asshole, but seeing him do these same kind of roles over and over again, and go, is he actually kind of portraying himself a little more here than we know? Because he plays this character way too well, and he does it too many times. And it's like he does it so that way he can actually like do that kind of thing. And I love it when he's actually just kind of playing these kind of characters. I know you don't like it, but I actually like him in Kevin Smith movies when he's doing these kind of funny one-off kind of characters. But he actually gets like four scenes in this movie. I actually kind of wish he was in it a little bit more.
Yeah, he's of course here showing them all their yoga poses, things like that, which of course will come into play later.
He's their yoga Yoda, basically.
Yeah, even though their yoga doesn't actually do anything, because they just do a pose or two and then just kick ass however they want.
Yeah, they pretty much just stand around and sit there and let him talk the whole time.
Yeah, and because he's just improvising the entire time. You can even tell sometimes when they're cracking up, you're like, this was not a scripted thing. They're cracking up at Justin Long doing his thing.
Which I'm okay with, because that actually plays into their characters.
Yeah, we then head back home to Lily's house then.
Yes.
Where her parents, who are Tony Hale and I'm not parents.
Well,
her
Tony
dad,
Hale's the father, and
her dad and his girlfriend, I guess.
Tabitha, yeah.
Are there. Where they're talking to him. And then of course he and Natasha Lyonne are going to go off into their bedroom, and she said, "Oh, can you leave the door open a little bit?" And it's like the only reason for this whole that whole happen is because then they break into the entire song of "Babe" by Styx, which you're like, okay, they're playing that cool because they're trying to have sex in the other room. But of course, he starts getting all emotional. I used to sing this to her when she was a baby, and he starts getting all emotional and crying.
And basically, they're doing it to screw over Tabitha, who's trying to have sex, but she knows that it will demasculate their father.
Yeah, but really, the only reason for it is that they can play in another entire. I mean, we're talking the full 3.5 minutes, however long the song is.
And then they're montaging in between about showing how good of friends they are. It's like, we already know this. Like,
we've already established they're good friends. Like, it's not like it's not like if you're playing it and they like had a fight and this song is going on and they're remembering their friendship, but there's no reason for them to be showing this friendship thing. We're just standing there singing a song.
It's just once again filling up this time so that way the movie's not an hour 15 minutes.
Yeah. And of course, you have to shove in more cameos. So we go back to school. There's Genesis Rodriguez, who was in Tusk. She is now the gym teacher, who is way too attractive and seemingly heterosexual to be a gym teacher, apparently.
Yes, and then this is that part of the movie where they're doing yoga in class, and they're off in the corner basically on their phones, and they basically say, "Here's a note from my yoga instructor saying that I shouldn't do yoga," which this is to me the Clueless part of the movie.
I just watched Clueless last week. It's a direct ripoff of Clueless.
Yeah, because she basically takes their phones, and then Harley basically faints because of that. Yeah. So then we get this whole overly long exposition scene with Lily's real life mom.
Yeah, Vanessa Paradis, who plays Mrs. Maurice, something like that. She's like, I guess, a history teacher, and she goes on this entire giant exposition dump with full on flashback scenes and everything.
With like Haley Joel Osment
of essentially the Canadian Nazis, who were this big force back then. And Haley Joel Osment was like the founder of the Canadian like Nazi movement. And then the guy who kind of followed him, took over from him, was Ralph Garman. And he's the one who supposedly has disappeared, and he'll come back later. We'll find out more about him. But they tell it goes on. This goes on forever. It's a whole big.
It's basically trying to develop a whole bunch of backstory for future events that really don't matter outside of like the bare bones. Back in the day, there were Canadian Nazis. It was led by the Canadian Führer, Haley Joel Osment, and there was a scientist dude who followed him. He got away. No one ever saw him. The end. I just saved you 6 to 8 minutes of screen time.
You really did. And like you said, this whole Canadian Nazi thing, it's actually going to just thrown out the window later on, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So they do the whole thing. They do the whole exposition dump. Then we get to see the return of Johnny Depp as Guy Lapointe, is basically the Canadian Columbo. He plays it as, and he has the mole that moves around his face.
And then adds more moles as the movie goes on. But
Sorry, my microphone just almost fell.
But yeah, his mole moves around, and then later in the film, he starts adding
Which
more
by the way,
moles.
was I don't like this film, but that joke was already used in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yes, it
the mole
is.
moving around the face.
I was totally in Robin Hood Men in Tights with was it Richard Lewis?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's Richard Lewis. But the whole time he's doing this, because once again, with every Johnny Depp time he pops in as Guy or Guy, he has to have like a 10-minute long like exposition story that really is just pointless. But the whole time watching him, I'm like, he sounds like Taika Waititi. He 100% sounds like Taika. And every time he started to talk after that, I was just picturing Taika Waititi instead of Johnny Depp in this role, which honestly probably would have made it funnier. Because the whole time I'm like, why is Johnny doing this? It's like, oh, it's because he's getting to act with his daughter.
Okay. Yeah, he just wants to be in a movie with his daughter, and he wants to be silly, and so he does this, like I said, basically Canadian version of Columbo. Of course, he's just there for more exposition as well.
Yeah. So he basically had like 15 minutes long of exposition.
Yeah, and this scene,
which once again is also then connecting Tusk into this movie because they keep bringing up Tusk in this point. But then they're bringing up the killer, because the guy that got killed in the beginning was one of the guys that came into the shop at the very beginning when they were saying sorry about that to everybody. So you're getting once again about a good 10-15 minutes of exposition going all the way through this, and then of course they don't have their phones, and so then we get another overly long scene with them talking to their principal, which is just once again really long, overdone, and you basically find out that Tabitha's taken their father to Niagara Falls, so they have to work tonight instead of getting to go to the party.
And the idea is she purposely did it just to screw these girls because she knew they wanted to go to this party.
Because they're a bunch of yoga hosers.
Yeah, because they're a bunch of yoga hosers. So basically, they have this fit because they're going to have to work, and so they're going to miss this party.
Yeah.
So they're at work, and they call up. I don't remember the name. Austin Butler character. They call him up, basically say, "Hey, why don't you
Hunter?
Thank you. We can bring the party here. You can come have the party at the A to Z convenience store." And he's like, "Really? You can have it there?" Which they weren't even at a party to start with. It was just the two of them hanging out outside.
No. They were at the party. This is where the whole subplot makes zero fucking sense. Because what you find out was that there was no party to begin with.
Yeah.
They were basically trying to get Harley and Lily to come over because there you find out that Gordon, I think it's Gordon is Tyler Posey's character. Yeah, Gordon and Hunter are devil worshippers.
They're Canadian Satanists, eh?
Yes, devil, and they want to sacrifice Harley and Lily because they're virgins. Because every senior,
there's no virgins in the 12th grade, so you got to bring the 10th graders.
Yeah, you got to bring 10th graders in. So basically, it's all.
We should have done this whole thing in the Canadian accent, eh?
I mean, I could have pulled the whole thing off for the whole episode, but basically, their whole thing was that they wanted them to come to their party and basically do a ritual sacrifice and kill them for representing the devil. But they get invited. They go, "Oh, we can still do it there. It actually make it easier for us because it looked like robbers did it and all this kind of shit." So they show up, and basically, they really don't ease into this.
Well, no, I mean they're very polite about it because they said, we're not gonna rape you or anything. Actually, we need you to be pure. It's like, we're
like, well, you're religious, right?
Nice.
And she's like, not really. Well, we love the devil, and we need to kill virgins, and so I'm gonna cut your heart out. It's just like so stand still, eh?
Yeah, of course. At that moment, the Bratzies rise again.
No, we never described what the Bratzies were.
Oh, the Bratzies. Well, because this is the first time we see them.
This is the first time we actually do see them. Yeah.
Well, because first we see something crawl up Hunter's ass and kill him essentially. They see something crawl up Gordon, I think his name was.
Yeah, it's Gordon. They basically they're coming after Lily and Harley. So they're fighting them off, running around. Like Harley's stuck in the back room, and Lily's in the front being chased by Gordon, and vice versa. And then they both basically get attacked. Gordon and Hunter by these Bratzies, and basically for some reason always go up the ass, and then they crawl all the way up out of their mouth.
Yeah, you see the little outline crawling up his body.
Yeah,
and it's across the mouth, and you see it's basically it's a giant bratwurst essentially.
Not even a giant bratwurst; it's a regular size bratwurst.
Wearing like a kind of like a Mountie outfit. Which apparently they took off of all the beaver stuffed animals that were there. but they all also have on little like old style German helmets on with the pointy top on them and
And they
everything.
got a face with a mustache, and it's like,
And it's all played by Kevin Smith, who I found out
was it Kevin Smith that did it?
Yeah, well, it was originally supposed to be Jason Mewes. Jason Mewes could not handle the makeup. He couldn't even get through the makeup test because he gets claustrophobic apparently, and he didn't like sitting there and getting covered. So he wasn't going to do it. They offered it to Haley Joel Osment to do that part, and his manager is like, "Yeah, no, he's not doing this." And so Kevin Smith said, "Fine, he'll play the Bratzies himself." And apparently, it was the first time in like 26 years he had to shave because he had to put that makeup on and stuff. So that was interesting.
Yeah, and so basically, like it at this point, the movie's just like, fuck you. Like, we're so like, because at first I was like, I didn't realize they were bratwurst at first. So I was like, because I asked Brian, I go, these better not be penises. And then it comes out, I go, so it is a penis. It's a penis with a face on
You
it.
don't even know until at some point later on, someone actually call them Bratzies, and they say, "Oh, they're bratwurst."
Well,
it's like until then, you're not even sure what they are.
We didn't know at first until Harley and Lily get back together in the convenience store, and they grab one and they throw it in the microwave, and it explodes, and it's got like yellow. Is it kraut sauce?
It's filled like sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut sauce.
Yeah.
And then they grab another one and they pull it free, and then they describe it. They call 911, and it's fucking Stan Lee, who's the dispatcher. And they're basically describing.
Like I said, I feel bad for everyone involved in this movie that put in their time just because they felt bad. They wanted to help out Kevin Smith's kid, and instead they have this on their resume. Just saying.
Yeah, and so basically they're calling 911 saying, "Hey, you need to get here quick. We're being attacked by brat-sized, not Bratzies, basically was it bratwurst Nazis filled with sauerkraut sauce?" Which of course Stanley's like, "What the fuck are you guys smoking?" kind of thing. And so then we get the best way I can describe this is almost like Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn jailbreak, where they basically play music that they've sang. So it's another song, but they're not singing at this point. And this is where the hockey stick and the mop that's in the poster. And they're basically fighting warrior pose against like 50 of these Bratzies and just hitting them all. And they all just keep exploding into yellow, sauerkraut crap all over the place. And it's basically a long, overly done and stupid fight scene that's just ridiculous. And then basically they walk out of the convenience store and all the cops are there. And they get arrested.
They get arrested for the murder of Hunter
and Gordon.
And it's like if they can tell the story and go look inside, you'll see all these little things dressed up and
well, that's the thing is that
evidence everywhere.
They had to go in anyway to know that Hunter and Gordon were dead.
Yeah.
So how do they not see these little bratwursts with faces and a Nazi hat all in there?
Which Guy apparently found one of them, and so he believes them, but no one else does.
Basically, what's funny is like I got one right here, and it basically is a bratwurst with a coat on in a baggie. Yeah. It's like because clearly they didn't decide to put special effects on that. But the thing is that like so we see them in jumpsuits, they're in jail, and of course they can't call anybody, and so they're sitting in like an interrogation room, and here comes Guy, led by Jason Mewes, who lets them in. And Jason Mewes doesn't even have a character name. He's just a cop.
Just a random cop.
Random cop who basically loves Guy's book about Tusk and lets him in there to talk to the girls. And then, he's like, hey, explain to me how you murdered them. And then they go into a whole spiel what happened. He's like, you know what? I found this there. I believe you. It's like, then why'd you make them explain all that shit? And then once again, another overly long scene of them.
Long scene exposition of him explaining things, then them telling her what they saw, or them telling him what they saw. And then for no reason at all, Lily starts deciding she's like, I'm going to speak to you in French. So she speaks to Guy in French, even though he understands English just fine. And then she translates it.
She speaks it in French because she doesn't want Harley to know about something. But then as soon as she says it in French to Guy or Johnny then, just basically tells Harley what she said.
For the rest of that scene, Lily's talking in French and Guy is translating it for Harley. So, she's saying this. And it's like, what the fuck's
the point?
Except that maybe, I guess, Lily wanted to show off that she could speak French, which will come again in the end with the song. But there's no reason for that. And they talk about a secret passageway, which she says she made up. But, of course, it turns out there really is a secret passageway.
So she makes it up so that way they can get out of jail.
Somehow. Somehow he sneaks out these two accused murderers out of jail.
Well, they're Mounties. They don't get taken seriously.
They go back to the A to Z. They're looking around inside, and they all get basically abducted by the Bratzies and these people.
But first they get very, very upset because Guy didn't grab their phones.
Oh yeah, I didn't grab their phones on the way out.
That's important for a plot point later. That's important that they didn't have their phones. So they go to the bathroom to change out of the orange jumpsuits because orange is the new black is so not their thing.
They didn't have a change of clothes either, but they had something there.
Yeah, basically they're attacked by more Bratzies in the bathroom. The toilet is actually a secret passageway door, and they get taken. And then Johnny Depp's Guy comes in with a hockey stick, and he's attacked, and they're kidnapped as well. And then they basically are in this like secret base down below the A to Z. And they're all three bound to these chairs. But the funniest fucking thing about it is that Harley probably as well, but Lily's hands are so fucking small. Like it's one of those things where it's got like the latch thing over, but the latch is about this fucking high. So Lily could literally just do this.
Not even retract her fingers. Just pull her hands straight out.
She could literally just turn her wrist sideways.
And I'm pretty sure Harley could too.
Harley would probably have to pinch her hands a little bit to get out. But the only one that can't get out would be Guy because he's big enough. Yeah. But I'm just like, and they're just standing there like, oh my God, we're trapped. I'm like, no, you're fucking not. Just slide your hands out and you're free. Unless your legs are trapped, then yeah, you're screwed. And then we get to see the hell's his name? Ralph Garman. And what's his actual character? I'm trying to find him here.
Arcane something.
Andronicus Arcane or something like that. Andronicus Arcane.
Yeah, and this is the biggest. Like he goes into a whole another
once again huge. Well, I mean, this is like your villain monologue scene, but it's an exposition.
Well, it's the villain monologue, but it also is the thing that throws out everything we know up till now because it basically talks about how he had dreams of becoming an artist.
He's doing the Hitler thing.
Doing the Hitler thing. But he'd had like his work ridiculed by all the critics. He decided to become a scientist for the Canadian Nazi movement, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And they hid him underground. They created a clone army. Here, I'm going to read this part. Created a clone army to conquer Canada and the United States. The clones, made from bratwurst and Arcane's DNA, needed to incubate for 100 years before they were fully grown. So Arcane cryogenically froze himself until the time when he and his clones could rise again. I'm reading this because I didn't even catch half this stuff in the movie. There's so much exposition. I just
I did. But then,
because of an accident there, he got woken up early, and that's why the
girls were practicing. The girls were practicing with Ichabod, and they blew a fuse, which thus stopped the incubation period, which led the bratwurst to just be still the same fucking size, but alive, and thus now we're at where the movie is.
Yeah, and so he woke back up. Learned the Nazi party was already defeated. And so his new mission now instead is just to kill critics. Which, get it? Because Kevin Smith doesn't like the critics that criticize his films. Get it?
You're forgetting the worst part about this whole monologue / exposition is that because he's German and it's scary, I'm going to do it in voices. I'm going to do it as Al Pacino. And then I'm going to do it as Stallone. And then I'm going to do it as Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then I'm going to do it as Ed something. Adam West, and then there was someone else, he sounded like Roger Rabbit.
Not very good impressions. His Adam West one was decent. His Al Pacino one, if you didn't tell me it was Al Pacino, I wouldn't even know it was Al Pacino.
Yeah, except for every time you go, "Hoo."
Yeah, it's just they're horrible impressions. And again, it feels like something was like, do what you want to do, be funny. Just we'll film it, and it's just like it just wasn't good.
And of course, the whole butt of the joke is while he's doing all of these, the Colleens don't know who he's trying to be, but Guy knows, and Guy's like, "You're fantastic."
Oh, but except when they do Adam West, and Guy, the point is like, "Oh, he's doing Batman." He's like, "That's not Batman. This is Batman." And they try and do apparently like a Christian Bale Batman, but neither of them sounds anything. They didn't even use like the gruff voice. They just like.
Tell me what the trigger is, Joker. Kind of thing.
It was just they weren't even. That was closer than they were. It was just. Just
and which the one funny part of Johnny Depp is like, you guys are both horrible at this, and that line was never in the movie.
That line was never in the movie. Yeah.
Like that was the one part where I felt like Johnny Depp was actually playing Johnny Depp talking to his daughter, like, you guys are horrible at this, and that was not in the film.
You guys ruining the scene in this otherwise stellar movie. Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, and so basically Arcane basically built this gigantic like bratwurst mech.
The
kind of
goalie golem,
suit.
he calls it.
What's that?
The goalie golem he created
Yeah, the
from all the
goalie
victims.
golem.
Yeah.
And he basically decides that he's going to take all the remaining Bratzies and they're all going to basically go into it and treat it like a fucking like mech warrior transformer kind of thing. And they're basically going to go kill off all the critics.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. But of course, for some reason, the Colleens feel like they have to stop this thing. And they get out of their chairs like they should have right from the get-go. And basically, doesn't Arcane get killed by the thing? Yes, because he's like
the goalie golem turns on him.
The golem turns on him because he's like, no, you're doing this wrong. You need to go because the Colleens talk bad to the golem, so the golem wants to kill the Colleens, and Arcane wants to keep them alive because he admires them because they take pictures with their phone. He wanted them to take a picture with him. The golem, they're like, we don't have our phones.
Yeah, his other big goal is he wants to be on the cover of They magazine, or he wants to be in They magazine.
Was it they or them? I think it was them.
Was it them?
Yeah, it was them because they show it so many times. Like it's People magazine basically for Canada.
Well, like us and them. Yeah.
Them. And so the golem tries to kill them because they basically stood up to it like they were going to fight it. He gets in between, but no, the Colleens are safe. You don't attack them. You only go after the critics. Attack people who are critics to you, who talk bad and are mean. So it kills Arcane.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes a fight with the golem for basically the two, because Johnny Depp's tied up the entire fucking
time. Using all their yoga apparently.
Yes, using their yoga
to kill them, which is just a big stretch.
Yeah, and so basically I don't even think they kill the golem. I think they just kill all the bratwursts.
Yeah, they just kill all the individual.
Basically every time they kick it or whatever, some bratwursts get destroyed, and then eventually like they all like fall out of the back end. They knock the golem on top of it, and they all basically die. And that's effectively where
that's essentially the end of the movie, and except for the end credits where they sing "Oh Canada," and then in its entirety, and then they sing it again in French because I guess Lily wants to show off that she can speak French. I don't know. It's not that big a deal. Your mom's French. We get it. Okay.
Yeah, and that's effectively the movie until the end credits, when you get to hear Kevin basically describe how he came up with yoga hosers, which
the yoga hosers story.
Not funny, not even remotely amusing at all. It's just basically, I think didn't you say like, man, I hated when Kevin Smith actually started to smoke real weed.
Well, he did, because like he used to be like all anti-drug and stuff, especially because he saw what it did to Jason Mewes, and then it was apparently on the set of Zack and Miri Make a Porno that Seth Rogen finally turned him on to weed, and ever since then, like Kevin Smith has just like always been a wake and bake kind of guy. He's just always doing weed and praising weed, and it seems to me that's about the point. He stopped being nearly as funny, but that's just me.
Yeah. But also there was more scenes with Justin Long and the girls. There's also a running joke where Justin Long's name is Yogi Bear, but Bear.
His name is Bayer, and so
Bear like the medicine
Yogi,
Bear.
Yogi Bayer.
And there's
Warner Brothers wants to sue him. Cease and desist.
There's a running joke where Warner Brothers is suing him for Yogi Bear. But yeah, you have these moments with him and the girls, at least 2 or 3, where they're just all kind of talking and like I said, they're his friend kind of thing. So that actually is what
just more opportunities for him to improv is what it is,
basically, and then have them laugh at him. But yeah, that's Yoga Hosers. It's definitely
again mercifully short at like an hour and 26 minutes.
And like I said, about a good 30 plus minutes of that is exposition, and then about another 10, 15, almost 10 to 12 minutes of that is singing. So if you think about it, it's really like a 40-minute movie. But I would say this in terms of, because this is what, our 5th episode? It's our 5th
Something
episode?
like that,
4th or 5th episode? I think it's our 5th. Based off of what we've watched, this and technically Soul Man are probably the 2 least worst films of cinemasochism.
The Bratwurst?
Tiptoes was horrible. Kung Pao was horrible. Fantastic Four was atrociously bad for more reasons, which watch that episode that we just aired.
Still better than Kung Pao, though.
Yes. But Soul Man was just executed the wrong way, but it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a good movie. Yoga Hosers, it's stupid. It's not good, but it wasn't.
Well, and here's the thing we both agreed on. Is that the 2 girls, they're not bad. They're not like great actresses or anything, but I don't really blame them for this movie at all. I thought they actually, I think they had some personality. They definitely have chemistry. You can tell they're real friends. They did their part decently. I mean, the problem is the script, what they were given to say was bad, and like I said, everybody they put in there in the little cameos was bad, and it's just like everything around them. And what gets me is, okay, Kevin Smith and apparently Johnny Depp, they want to let their kids do this. They want to make this vanity project for their kids. Great, but like I was telling you before, wouldn't you want that to be a good project instead of something that's going to follow them around and people are going to criticize them for the rest of their life?
And that's what I was telling you, was at the end of the movie, I was like, you know what? I was like, there is a potential of a decent movie in here, but they chose, they were basically at a fork in a road. You could go one way or you can go the other way. One way is the way they went with the Brazis and the German Nazis and all this kind of crap, which ruins the fucking film past the point of no return. Mm-hmm. Or they could have gone the route where the subplot was with Hunter and Gordon, where it was a bunch of devil worshippers. And they could have actually gone almost like an Idle Hand-esque kind of thing, where it was these devil worshippers in Canada and they're murdering people and they basically are trying to summon the devil. And you could have actually gone that route with it, with Hunter and Gordon and these devil worshippers and them having to stop them by the end of the film. And you know what? That plot honestly probably would have worked for what it was, and actually maybe would have made it a decent film. But as soon as you brought up these fucking Brazis, you lost all credibility of the film. It was out the window at that point. And then you just kept going down this stupid and stupider and stupider and stupider road. And you're watching the movie, it's like, you know what? There was a moment here where this could have actually been an okay film. You decided to go down the dumbest possible road with these bratwurst Nazis. And you basically, it was like, if you're not going to take this movie seriously, then I can't take this movie seriously. Because I think with the Hunter Gordon thing and the Devil's Roars, because it goes nowhere in the film. There was literally no point in this movie to make them devil worshippers because it has no bearing on the film. You could have just had the guys show up thinking they were just going to get laid, and they could still die. It's the same fucking film for them at that point. You don't need to add this layer about them being devil worshippers and them wanting to kill the Colleens, because it mattered differently.
Yeah, that had
matters nothing to this fucking film. But if you ended up making that movie, that is the plot, I think Yoga Brothers actually would have worked for the point of being just at least an average film.
Yeah, I mean, they went over the top with all the Canadian speak and the stereotypes and things like that, but it still could have been an entertaining comedy. But the minute you turn in the Brazis and that whole thing, the Brazis are
and every Brazi would just say Wonderbar the whole time. Yeah. And it was just like, oh my God, this is annoying as fuck. So it was one of those movies where it's like, you had the opportunity to make something actually good for your daughter, and you chose to shit all over this film, literally with a stupid ass character. And I mean, we literally praise a movie called Dogma, where there is a literal shit monster in it, and that's considered one of his best films ever. And then there's a movie that you could have done something, and you completely decided to shit all over your own movie. And like I said, I agree. Both Lily and Harley, they're fine in the film. I don't dislike their characters, especially once you kind of figure out what their characters are. And you're like, oh, they're clueless, and Romy and Michelle. Like, okay, I know what their characters are. They're likable. They're not unbearable in this film. I mean, they have the emphasis of the Canadian accent, but everyone does, especially Tony Hale. So you can't really blame them for that when everyone's doing it. But their characters are rootable. Like, you don't hate them. You don't like go, oh man, I wish they would have fucking died, like you do with some movies. They're likable characters. It's the script around them and the choices that they made in this film that inevitably is what makes Yoga Hosers one of Kevin Smith's worst films. I still think it's better than Tusk. But it is the reasonings for the choices of this film where it's like, how dumber can we make this? Oh, let's make these bratwurst Nazis. That you had a good formula over here, and you just chose to just completely blow it away. And do you even remember where you took that picture, or what part of the movie you took that picture of us?
I want to say it was one of the first appearances of the Brazis.
Was when the Brazis showed up?
I think so.
So I'm pretty sure it was when, because if I remember, I was like, when I was in this, when you showed the picture and I saw what it looked like, I was like, I'm pretty sure this was during the Brazzi scene. This is the picture that Brian took of us during that moment when the Brazis showed up and they were having the big fight scene with the Brazis. And this is basically the moment where Brian and I were both just like, we're over this now. Like, we're done. Like, this movie jumped the shark, it jumped the deep end, it sank, whatever terminology you want to use. that was the image that showed us that we were done with this movie. But yeah, that was basically it right there. They had a choice. They could have gone that route with Austin Butler and Tyler Posey, and I think the movie actually would have been like almost like a Jennifer's Body-esque kind of movie, and they just completely ruined this film. Ruined it. And what sucks is that I know now, as much as I hate to say it, we're gonna have to watch Moose Jaws. And I don't want to, but we're gonna have to. We gotta finish.
Well, we're gonna have to watch it. And honestly, I mean, it doesn't have this stupid, concept of Tusk, and it doesn't have the Bratzies in it. So it's like maybe if this is just a killer moose on the loose, kind of like a cocaine bear kind of thing, then maybe it could be good. Because, like I said, the characters of the Colleens
they're likable.
Fine. And I honestly like both actresses. I think that they both could have a future in movies. I mean, like Harley has shown up obviously in Kevin Smith's films since then, things like that, especially in like Reboot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I haven't seen Lily Rose Depp act much, but I know she
has.
I
think I asked you what I feel like I had seen her before in other things, but she hasn't done she did Silent Night last year. Or sorry,
and she was in a movie called like Wolf or something like that with the guy who was in 1917, George something. McKay, yeah, he's in a movie with him recently, but I haven't really seen her stuff. But I think they're both decent actresses. And
Harley, I mean, she popped up in Clerks 3, but I mean,
also with Austin Butler in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yep, she was in that as well. But yeah, the only thing she has on development right now is Moose Jaws, and then something called but that's a short movie. So yeah, so Moose Jaws.
So I mean, hopefully it'll be entertaining, hopefully good, hopefully it'll like maybe redeem them and have them be able to have a career. Because right now, if this is the main thing on the resume, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, it's just something that these kind of movies frustrate me because they just chose the route. They had a potential of a good movie there or an average movie there, but they chose the route of being stupid, which at that point, it's like, it's hard for me to trust me wanting to give you money to watch your stuff or even give you guys a remote chance to think that you're going to give me something worthwhile when you choose to go down this road. And you could chalk it up to being, Kevin Smith was high and he was just making a funny movie, but it's like, dude, you actually did damage to your daughter in this. Even though she was good in the movie, they're still in the movie called Yoga Hosers that not a lot of people like. Because what was the average Letterboxd score you said?
A Letterboxd like 1.8.
Yeah, which I think I gave it. a 1.5 or a 2. Because it's like, while I didn't like the movie, there were elements of some good stuff in there, which is one of my higher scores for our CineMasochism movies. But yeah, it was just this movie frustrates me. And not in a way like Tiptoes did or Soul Man. This one frustrates me because I could see literally like Kevin Smith almost intentionally screwing this movie up.
Well, it's the kind of thing where you can tell that this movie and Tusk came out of him and his buddy Scott Mosier joking around on their Smodcast where they throw out all kinds of stupid, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we made a movie about this? And it's like, most of the case, no, it wouldn't. It's like, this is why you need a studio, because they can have people be like, maybe this isn't the right thing, or maybe you should shape this idea you have. But when he has full creative control on his own, this is what we get.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, that covers it.
Yeah. So that is this episode of CineMasochism. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, you can follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, Cocaine Bear is coming out, and we will have a review for that. Brian and myself will be on the review together because it is one of our most anticipated films of the year. That'll be coming out either late Thursday evening or early Friday morning, as well as this week's Weekly Crusaders, where we talk about 2 movies that came out during this week in movie history. Also, we have a Ghost on Netflix. It's coming out as well. So as soon as I see that, we'll have a review out for that as well. All leading up to March, where we are starting to get some big films. Creed 3 is coming out, which I'm in the process of going back and watching all the Rockies, and for some reason they are not hitting me the same way. The Rocky movies are not hitting me the same way as they did when I was younger. I think I'm 3 Rockies in, and I'm just not enjoying them like I used to. But maybe it's just maybe it's just not in the right mood. I don't know. But Rocky 1 and Rocky 2 definitely did not hit the way they used to hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else you'd like to add before we head out?
No, just everyone go watch some more movies, and if you find some good shitty ones that we haven't heard of, let us know. Maybe
Let us know. Yes, that's one too. There are so many bad movies out there that Brian and I can't cover them all. And there's actually one movie that we are going to talk about sometime down the road. It's whenever, because Brian picks the movies that we watch. But I was actually listening to a podcast. It wasn't even a movie podcast. It was a wrestling podcast. And this comedian, Jeff Dye, who's a real funny dude, he brought up this movie. And it sounded so amazingly awful that I told Brian, I was like, Brian, we have to watch this movie. The way this guy described this movie, we have to watch this movie. And Brian's like, all right, we'll add it to the list. So if you guys have any movies that you think are incredibly awful, that you just think that we deserve to torture ourselves to watching so you don't have to, pitch it to us in the comments, and we will see if we decide to put that on the latest episode of CineMasochism. But until next time, go watch some movies, whether they're good or bad. Let us know and have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.